Hi everyone, this is Mr. Cardoso, and in this lesson we will be taking up the assignment, which was exercises 6.3, question number 2 for the class Circle, defined as follows. So we're looking over here, so we have a circle class, so we're defining a circle object. They want us to write some constructors because that was the purpose of this lesson. So the first one says, write a constructor method that has no parameters. The method should construct a circle object with the center at 0, 0 and a radius of 1. So let's go over to our class. I've already set up the class over here. So now constructor, remember, we start with public. Again, it doesn't always have to start with public, but we'll talk about that later. And we start with, and then we go with the class name, because the name of the class it kind of serves two purposes. So it's the return type as well as the function or the method name, if you will. So that's why there's no method name here, and there's also no return type, because we're returning a circle once we've constructed it. So now, what do we need to take in? It says it takes no parameters. So you can see right here. So that's why the brackets are empty. And in this case, we can say, for example, well, what's x and y going to get? X represents the x position, y represents the y position of the circle, and r represents the radius. So we're going to say x gets 0, because it says with center 0, 0. Y gets 0, and the radius gets 1. I guess they don't want the radius to be 0 because then your circle would be non-existent. So the radius is 1. So there we have it. That's our constructor. Now for part B, and by the way, so it's optional. You can actually do this, this dot x. So what this constructor does, just to remind you from our lesson, it's going to, when it's called, it's going to create that box, right? It's going to create a box, and of course, this will be pointing to it in the fraction, or in this case, the circle class. So this will be pointing at it. So when we say this dot x, we're actually referring to this one here. So it sets it to 0. Sets this y to 0, and then sets the radius to 1, right? So it'll construct this actual object, which is of type circle, and return it back to whoever called it. Now, notice it's very similar. Our circle object looks like our fraction object. In fact, we kind of draw all objects this way as a box with all of its fields. So visually, all of these objects look the same, but really what defines the object are the types here. So for a fraction, remember we had a numerator and denominator, and they were type int. Here for circle, we have 3 things that are type double, x, y, and r. And by the way, these things don't have to be the same. They happen to be the same. That's just a coincidence in our 2 examples. And in fraction, they were both integers for the numerator and denominator. And here in circle, all 3 of them are doubles, but they don't have to be the same. You can have a string in there, and you can have as many of these fields as you like. So just as a reminder, these are your instance fields, and we often call this is what defines the object. So basically what the object has, think of them as nouns. Right here, we're going to have our constructor section, and in fact, maybe I'll do this. Let's go across there, and I'll say these are my constructors, because you can have more than one constructor. So I'll say, so these are all my constructors. This is my constructor number 1, if you will, and then we have our part B constructor. So public. Now this one says takes 3 parameters representing the coordinates of the x, y, and the radius. So public circle again, and again it's allowed to have the same name because we're overloading it. Right now they're not allowed to be the same because they have the same number of parameters, so that's no good. So we are going to put the parameters in here. So for example, we can go int x, int y, and sorry, these should all be double, shouldn't they? Double r. So double x, double y, and double r. All right. So now, in this case, okay, and let me just, you know what, let's just comment this out for now. Let's just, you know, we should make sure this compiles. I didn't even save it yet, so let's hit the compile button. We'll save this as circle. Okay, it's complaining about the radius. Radius cannot be, oh, we called it r, not radius. That should be r, so that's this r right here. So that's why I was complaining. It's good to get these compiler errors once in a while so you can see what's going on. So everything compiles. Now if I put this back in, okay, so now something similar to what we're going to do here is basically we're going to say we want to assign this x that's coming in as a parameter to this one. Already things are going off in my head like something's not right here, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to go x gets x, y gets y, and r gets, oops, how did I get up there? R gets r. That looks really weird. That's kind of like writing like 5 gets 5. Like it's kind of like a meaningless statement. Like what does it even mean? Well, does it work? Let's find out. If we hit the compile button, it gives us 3 warnings. And then sometimes I say, okay, they're just warnings, don't worry about them. But in this case, the warnings mean that this assignment has no effect. It's like saying 5 equals 5. So if I say 5 equals 5, well, that's fine, but it has no effect. You're not doing anything. So it's actually referring to the same x variable. So this x that's coming in is being assigned to the same x variable that came in. So in order to distinguish between the two, remember how before I said this dot is optional most of the time within this class? In this case, it's not optional. So this dot x, this dot y, and this dot r. So now it's clear that we're taking the x that's coming in from the user and assigning it into this field for this circle object. So let's compile that. Now let's actually do an example. I'm just going to do it right here in the interactions panel for this example here. So let's actually create 2 fractions so far. So I asked you to also create a class that had some calls. So we will go circle, let's say C1 for lack of better circle name, equals new circle. Let's just call the first constructor. So we do that and we're done. Now we don't have a toString method in here yet. So let's go down here and put one in. So we'll call these instance methods. So I'll go public string, and if you don't remember about the toString method, we did that in one of the first video lessons, so go back and take a look at that. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say return, and let's say we wanted to just somehow so we can see what it looks like, because if I come down here and I print out C1, you know, it's going to do that if you remember correctly. So I want to be able to see my circle in some sort of you know, readable way. So I'm going to go return, and I need to return a string. So let's return how about you know, this, I don't know, how about this, the center. So so let's say open brackets plus x plus, and I can say this dot x as well, comma space plus y plus close bracket and I can say with radius plus r. How about that? So that's some fancy string concatenation there. I don't need that other quote. Okay, let's compile that now. Go back to the interactions panel, so I'm going to create that same circle again. And because, there we go, so we get 0.0 with radius 1.0. I can even say, circle with center at, so that might look a little nicer. Oh, there's nothing to run, sorry. Interactions panel. Oops. And now I can put C1, just so you can see that there. So that looks a little bit nicer there. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to print the second one. So let's compile this again. So to do the next one, we would go circle C2 gets new circle. Let's say I want to say it's at 3, -5, and the radius is 10. Okay, so C2 now gives you that when we print it out. So that's working. So how does this work? Well, let's just see a diagram quickly. So here we say circle C2. So C2 right now, at this moment, before the right-hand side is happened, so C2 is kind of pointing to nothing. Then it goes new circle, so it calls this one, because you sent it 3 items, and they fit into this signature, double, double, double. So these can fit into that. So now it goes into that one, and it says, okay, create this, so it creates it, right? At this point in this file, this is pointing to it. So when we say this.x gets x, which is 3, so it puts 3 into this field, it puts -5 into this field, and 10 into the R field. And then it basically returns it, and it returns it back to C2. So it goes over here back into C2. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, and now just quickly let's go through the last constructor. So public. It wants to take one parameter, another circle. So public circle, and this is going to take another circle. So let's call it other, because it's another circle. And so it's just going to copy, basically it's going to make a copy of that circle. So what we can say now is this dot x gets other dot x, and this dot y gets other dot y, and this dot r gets other dot r, and that will copy it over. So now how we would use this in the interactions panel is we would go circle C3 gets new circle. Now it doesn't work because we can't actually create that one, so we actually have to create another circle first. So let's say circle C3 equals new circle, and let's say it's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so C3, let's print it out. There's C3. Now to use the last constructor here in part C, we actually need that other circle. So circle C4 gets new circle, and let's say we want to actually just pass it C3. So we put C3 in here. So now C3 gets passed in. Because it's taking a circle object, C3 is of type circle, it chooses this one which matches this signature. So it goes into that one, and then others passed in, so it says other.x, which we know is 1, other.y, which is 2, and other.r is 3, gets assigned into this one. So basically that essentially makes a copy. So if I print out C4 now, they have the same values as C3. So that's a great way of making a copy of another object, is to create that constructor that takes that other object and then just copy over all the values. Okay, I hope that makes sense, and I'll catch you next time.